Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. And so at today's video, we have the Brawl Talk breakdown. Finally, there's so much to cover. There's 3 brawlers. Well, there's actually 2 brawlers, but one of them is 2 brawlers in one. Like, you get 2 different abilities. It's absolutely insane. A new rarity, a bunch of new Hypercharges, a limited time event, loads of new game modes, one of them being a MOBA, which is insane. There's probably so much more I've missed out on. So let's jump into it. So to begin with, let's go through one of the brawlers called Kaze. She is a new rarity, never seen in Brawl Stars, ultra legendary. So this is of course gotta be better than legendary, which is insane. So with ultra legendary, all of these brawlers will have something unique and special about them, which is kind of scary. I mean, it is fun, right? But it's scary in the balancing side of things because it's just so much more unique and crazier than, for example, the starter brawlers, which will just get left behind eventually because this brawler Kaze is insane. So it's a 2-in-1 brawler. You can switch between both settings in-game, which is another insane thing about it. I thought it was outside of a game, but literally in-game, how is this brawler not going to be broken? She has 7,600 health, which is similar as Mortis. So let's break down her mode. So with Geisha mode, you have a strike spot similar to Shade mechanic, which deals extra damage. So you know with Shade how he just swipes inwards, and then if you hit that little bit in between, you deal a lot more damage, or I think double damage, I can't remember off the top of my head. But this is the same. So you have a strike spot, so the attack is a full circle, and then let's just say like an eighth of that circle, you have this strike spot that deals 3,000 damage. They also said it triggers an ability. I'm not too sure what that ability is. I didn't get to see whether it's like a small speed boost or something. I don't know, but the attack damage is very similar just to a BB swing. So just literally think of it as like a better Kenji swipe, for example. And then with the normal damage, 1,500. So outside of that, so for like 7/8 of your attack circle, you're going to be dealing 1,500 damage, which is still a decent amount of damage. Just think of Kenji's normal slash attack. It's not a lot, but it's okay, especially, but you just need to try and position yourself. And you've also got to remember as well, with every single attack, you will dash forward with this Geisha mode. So the reload speed is going to be pretty fast. It looks very similar to Kenji, so you're going to have a lot of mobility with this brawler. You're going to be dashing around, dealing damage, and getting it close and personal. The super is a fan storm, and it looks very similar to Sandy's super in terms of size and just what it does, but it reduces the visibility for those inside of it. So the whole map goes a little bit darker. It doesn't look anything crazy, but I'm guessing some brawlers probably harder to spot, which is just pretty annoying. You want to stay out of that. It's just going to be a big Sandy super, and everyone wants to get outside of that. And if they try to leave, I didn't actually see this in the gameplay, but I'm guessing if you were inside of it and then you leave it, you get damage dealt to you. I don't know how much damage. It's probably not going to be a lot. It's probably going to be like below 2,000, but that's still something. And then with both of these modes, there's a ninja mode and this Geisha mode, you have different star power. Well, the star powers do something differently. But one cool thing that they did, by the way, is that the star powers and gadgets, they're not like, there's not 4 star powers and 4 gadgets. Like, you don't have to unlock them separately. Once you unlock one of those star powers, they're active for both of these modes. So a little bit confusing, a lot going on with this brawler, but essentially it's not greedy cell. You know, you also have 2 hypercharges technically, depending on what mode, but you don't need to unlock 2 hypercharges. You know what I mean? I think they've done that a fantastic way, by the way. That could have been very dangerous. A lot of coins would have been spent on this particular brawler. So with a star power with the Geisha mode is that the first star power, it slows enemies hit in her weak spot, I believe is what they said. So it just, again, that just helps you try and get into the critical spot, which is good. So you slow them, and then you want to try and maneuver them a lot easier with the dash, blah blah blah. You get 3k damage. And then star power number 2 is that it removes ammo from the enemies that are caught inside of her fan storm. So this is going to help her in 1vs1 interactions. I like both of these star powers. I think this second star power will be better. And then with gadgets for Geisha mode, it increases the movement speed after switching modes. So I'm guessing this is when you go from Geisha to the ninja mode this time, you're going to increase movement speed straight away after switching, which is nice. And then second gadget is invisibility. So an assassin that has invisibility, yeah, I'm a bit scared of that. It's basically a Leon with a click of a button again. I don't know why they keep implementing these invisibilities with a click of a green button. It's a little bit annoying, but hey, it looks really fun and pretty complex. So now moving on to the ninja mode. So with the ninja mode, you throw some shurikens from afar. I think the more damage, well, you deal more damage the closer the brawler is to you. So that kind of reminds me of Leon, of course. He shoots the same as well. The range looks very similar to Stu. It's really hard to tell in the gameplay, but that's some decent range, right? And I'm going to guess, I've seen the minimum damage around 800 damage, so that's going to be at maximum range. So I'm going to guess maybe up close 1,600 damage. I didn't really see a lot. I've seen a lot of like 1,200, etc. And with the super in ninja mode, the super will dash through enemies and marking them, and after you mark them, I think it's a couple of seconds after, so 2 or 3 seconds after, they'll get 3,000 damage dealt to them, so not instant damage. So I feel like what's going to happen a lot of the time in this ninja mode, yeah, you're going to get some kills, but you're probably going to get traded out pretty quickly. But it's just going to be a lot of like both, you know, the enemy and you dying at the same time, probably because of this delay. But then it's not making it overpowered, because 3,000 damage is a lot of damage. So then you get 2 separate star powers with this brawler as well in ninja mode, which is insane. So you get star power number 1, it causes marked enemies to deal damage around them when they're defeated. So I feel like this is a bit too niche. I don't know, we'll see. It's a lot of damage though. And then star power number 2 is all effects when switching to ninja have a 50% longer duration, so that's pretty cool. So 50% longer invisibility. I don't know, again, I'll have to test this out. Both gadgets as well look pretty cool. So healing when you switch to the geisha mode, and then you get a dash as well. So there's a lot with this brawler, so much information to digest, but I just can't see how. I mean, it's going to be very, very fun, of course, being an ultra legendary brawler, but personally, looking at all of this going on, you know, this new brawler, however you say it, they've got to be broke. So now moving on to brawler number 2, we have Jay Young. I'm not too sure on the rarity of the brawler. I'm gonna guess probably mythic, because yeah, it reminds me of like Max and that kind of 2 different modes. It's got to be at least mythic in my opinion. So with the 2 modes, it is a difference between speed and a heal. So you can switch modes when you use your super, and then when you use your super, it will throw out an effect. So for example, when you switch over to the heal mode, it will heal enemies nearby for 1,500, which is pretty nice. And then when you switch over to the speed mode, it will give a speed boost to all nearby teammates. It will show like a big circle. It kind of reminds me of, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like a mini Max super kind of radius, probably a little bit bigger in radius. His range is definitely medium range, again similar to Stu's, maybe a bit longer than Stu's, but nothing crazy in terms of range, so that's going to be of course a big weakness to him. He has a medium reload speed, or maybe even on the longer end of the reload speed. It doesn't look the fastest, let's just say that, and he has 6,800 HP. So let's take a look at his different modes then. So with heal mode, he'll heal 1,300 with every attack, and you got to also realize that every single attack that he throws out, it also pierces through enemies and your teammates, I believe. So you can get a lot of value with this if you're stacking up. And if he deals damage, if it hits an opponent, it's going to deal 1,700 damage. So for a heal brawler, that's actually quite a substantial amount of damage. That's decent. You know, again, you've got to consider as well, in the speed mode, you're actually going to deal less damage. So I kind of like this, because I think speed is actually better. You think of, again, Max. Max has always been better because of the speed boost that she provides to her teammates. Just so good at supporting everyone and taking over, you know, individual matchups. And in speed mode, he deals 1,500 damage, so only a 200 damage nerf. And again, it also pierces, but you can also get a lot of damage because of one of the star powers. So you can scale up the damage in this speed mode from 1,500 to 1,800 to 2,100, depending on how many brawlers it pierces. Again, I'll go into that star power in a second. So I'm going to guess in heal mode, you could get a lot of damage with this. This can be scaled from 1,700 to 2,000 to 2,300. That is a lot of damage for a healing the brawler. Again, this is pretty... It looks pretty good. A brawler that has so much versatility. We've seen with Juju, for example, they're always going to be pretty reliable in the meta. So star powers number 1, you give your teammates a speed boost when they're nearby. I'm not too sure on the radius, but again, seems pretty cool. And then star power number 2, it allows your attack to deal more damage when they pierce through targets. So like we just mentioned before, I'm guessing it's a 300 damage boost when it goes through targets. So this is going to be really good on game modes where people like to clump up, like Hot Zone, for example. So yeah, a lot to really like about Jay Young. I think he's not going to be anything like crazy. I mean, I don't know. He's not re-released with a hypercharge, so that's the only big downside. But I think there's a lot to like about him. I feel like the reload speed might be stopping him from being broken. But in terms of a brawler, I really like the thought process behind it. So much to like, and it's so unique. So quickly before we move on to the Hypercharges, just wanted to showcase the limited time event, because I think in terms of how they've just shown it in the UI and everything, it looks beautiful. It looks really good. And you got to remember, like, I remember doing a poll on Twitter and just seeing like community feedback on what their favorite update has been in the last year or whatever in terms of the limited events with Godzilla, with the Angels versus Demon event, etc. Most people liked Angel versus Demons the most, and that didn't have any specific collab or anything like that. So I think people will really enjoy this one. So yeah, it's really cool. It just reminds me of Angel versus Demon event though, which was actually really fun. But in terms of uniqueness, you know, they're just kind of reskinning this. I'm hoping they'll do maybe something a little bit different. They kind of have, because every single week there's like a new chapter, quote unquote, and this will give like, you know, different events, etc., different like boosts, you know, 100% Mastery Madness, 200% double XP, etc. But the main thing is that you get these Wasabi powers, which are like mutations. So mutations were actually really fun. I think they weren't as fun for most people because there's just a couple of really broken ones. So what I really hope, if it's just something stupidly broken, they just nerf it, please. I know that it's supposed to be crazy and fun, but if something stupidly crazy like the Rufus and Arika one that just ruins the event, is it that fun? No, because again, I was having fun with it until I realized that everyone was just using this and I couldn't move. I literally couldn't move the whole game. So yeah, as long as I can move, this will be fun. There's going to be 4 flavors to these Wasabis, and it depends on the hotness of the Wasabi with how good this ability is going to be. So you get 20 brawlers that have the hot Wasabi, 15 extra hot, 15 crazy hot, and 10 inferno. So there's only 60 brawlers that have this kind of mutation power, and you get a bunch of sushi rolls that are like basically these star drops that are reskinned, just like in the Angels versus Demons, you know, the demonic star drops, for example. So it's just like this. It's just like the Godzilla eggs as well. So you just get a bunch of like things inside of it, just like skins, brawlers, you know, these crazy power abilities, etc. So I think it's good. You can earn these through events, just like in the Toy Story collab. So yeah, it just reminds me of all the future collabs that we've done, which is good because the game has needed something like that. It has been pretty boring. But yeah, this starts on May 1st. I'm not as interested in this personally because I want the juicy Hypercharges. So now let's move on to the Hypercharges. So there's 8, well technically 9 Hypercharges that we've got to decipher here. Let's start off with Gus's. So with Gus's Hypercharge, we already kind of knew this, but they've changed it up a little bit. So when you super onto yourself or a teammate, it will throw out spirits in all directions. So kind of like a spike curveball. There's a bunch of them, and every spirit deals 2,000 damage. So that feels okay, especially with Gus. You know, you're pairing Gus with like an assassin or someone that's about to go in close to an opponent. I can probably deal a lot of damage. I imagine that this is going to deal a lot of damage to the high safe, maybe. You know, if there's a Brawl in high safe, you can shield them. But then again, Gus in height isn't the best. But I think there'll be some really cool synergies here. And it also heals the teammate who you hit. The next one is with Lily. Lily's Hypercharge looks crazy strong. Her super can now bounce off walls, so it's going to be near enough impossible to miss, unless you're me. And it transports both players into the Shadow Realm. So I imagine this one's going to be pretty strong because with Lily, she's got that automatic charging super radius that charges her Hypercharge. And then you've also got the fact that in a 1v1, you know, she's Assassin. Those sap boosts that she's going to gain are insane. She's not been good in the meta, but with the increased damage boost, shield boost, etc., I just really don't see her losing many 1v1s. Yeah, this Hypercharge is going to be very, very good. I don't know whether it's going to be broken, but she's definitely going to be back in the meta. The next one is Clancy's Hypercharge. So his super, I feel like I called this one. I can't remember if I called this one in a video not long ago, but it was very obvious. His super paintballs pierces enemies and then returns to Clancy afterwards, dealing more damage. So just basically a Griff super. But with Clancy's super deals a lot more damage. Yeah, I'm scared of this. I'm scared of this. The meta does need, well, the game needs a big tank counter. This could definitely catapult Clancy into the top of the meta again if his Hypercharge rate is pretty fast charging. The next one is Amber. Straight away, I think Amber's going to be an ST Brawler with this. It's nothing like broke. Actually, it is kind of broken. Her super, her Hypercharge super, is a bigger circle. It's much bigger oil, so you're going to be able to just never miss. And then it also burns on the ground for 3 seconds after being lit. You think of Amber as well with a stat boost. She already, for the longest time, was like an A tier brawler in the meta, consistent. She only dropped down recently because there's just been so many new hypercharges. This will catapult her in the S tier. Absolutely. She's going to be dumb broken, in my opinion. Next up, we've got Willow. So we know Willow's, they didn't change it whatsoever. I kind of feel bad for Willow because she's just kind of forgotten about, but her hypercharge super just means you can't take damage whilst mind controlling. I still don't think that's nowhere near good enough to make her meta. I mean, it's good, but you got to consider as well, after the mind control expires, well, you just a sit and duck most of the time with Willow, right? So yeah, not really the best, not too interesting in my opinion. Next up, we've got the new brawler, Kaze. She has 2 hypercharges in one, so depending on what mode you have. So with the Geisha, you have your Fan Storm, your super will deal damage over time. So kind of just think of, wait, I'm trying to think, does it linger over time, or is it only deal damage over time when you're inside of it? I didn't get to see fully here. I think it's just like the Sandy Rude Sandstar power, where it damages them when they're inside of it, or it's going to be like, just like you'll set on fire. We'll have to wait and see. I'll probably just see this in the gameplay when I go back. The second mode is the Ninja. So the Ninja Hypercharge gives an increased dash speed, which looks insane, and it deals instant damage if the targets are low enough to be defeated. So they'll instantly die. 3,750 damage, by the way. I'm gonna guess that it would still just deal damage over time if they're, but yeah, it's gonna do that, right? So still 3,750 damage no matter what. That is absolutely insane. I just can't see a world where Kaze isn't the best brawler in the game. An insane bunch of hypercharges. The next one is Griff's hypercharge. This looks absolutely broken as well. Griff's hypercharges, well, his super, his banknotes actually multiply. So once you throw them out and they've reached maximum distance, they then duplicate and then they return back to you, and it pierces through walls, but they'll return back to you at a delayed stage. This is absolutely insane. This is going to deal so much damage, and piercing through the map is just broken. It is actually broken. I think this is too good, my personal opinion. I don't really like too many abilities that can shoot through walls, especially, like, if anything, it needs to be a reduced damage if they go through walls. But yeah, there's just Griff is going to be one of the best brawlers in the game. Absolutely S tier, surely, with his hypercharge. And then lastly, we've got Kenji's hypercharge. So Kenji's hypercharge, he has a bigger circle around his X super. You've probably seen it in the clip. And then when you throw out the super, it will pull the enemies, as long as in that circle radius, into the center of the X. So that means when, you know, brawler's in the center of the X, they're going to get hit by both blades of your super, right, dealing a ton of damage, and then Kenji reappears in the middle of that X. So this can make for some really cool plays. Like, imagine in Brawl Ball, you have the ball, you pass it forward, you then like pull all the enemies towards you, just kill them, and then score a quick goal because you actually teleport to it. So you're self-passing essentially. It's going to make some really cool plays, going to make some big damage plays. Yeah, Kenji absolutely going to be S tier as well, in my opinion. These are some scary hypercharges. I think every single one, except for Willow's and maybe Gus's, is going to make such a big impact in the meta. On to the final bit of Brawl Talk, and it's going to be the Brawl Stars MOBA game mode. So there's other game modes which look pretty fun, but this is the one that probably has the most potential, I'm thinking, maybe of an esports perspective in the future. It's a little bit longer than the quicker game mode. I don't know, maybe I'm stretching, but it's just exciting because with MOBAs, it's completely different to how the game is played. And I think people have been dreaming of a Brawl Stars MOBA for a very long time. Me personally, I'm not too familiar with MOBAs. You know, I've played some of them, especially when I was younger. So yeah, I'll just break it down if you guys don't know what a MOBA is. So with MOBA, well, with the Brawl Stars one, there is a home base, which of course will have a lot of HP and pretty hard to take down. And then there's 2 towers, 1 either lane, and it's still 3 versus 3. So it's a little bit chaotic. But the towers will have a small range, so you get within that radius, you will receive probably a lot of damage. So the way that you can get down these towers is by gaining power, or there's like robots that spawn down each lane that you can use to, you know, tank for you, and you can get the tower down. You know, there's going to be a lot of strategy in this. You know, you're killing robots, you're killing the PC, and then there's also enemies on top of that. There's going to be a lot of chaos, which I really think I'm going to enjoy this. So you can kill mini robots to gain power. So down these lanes, they'll keep spawning. You can keep killing them to gain power. You can also take down towers. That will give you a lot of power. You can also kill enemies. You can also kill the robots that are in the middle. I think there's 3 circles that will spawn like robots over time, so allowing you to gain power. And then you've also got, again, these bots will just go down in waves each lane. I'm guessing they get stronger and stronger as the game develops, so it can help you eventually take down the enemy base. These as well with MOBAs, if you guys didn't know, I think typical MOBAs, again, I don't know the most about them, but I think they take a very long time to play. A very, very strategic game. But with this one, because of Brawl Stars, you don't want a really long game, right? Like, people complain about ranked, you know, with drafting, etc. They don't want too long of a game. You know, Brawl Stars, they're used to like 1 minute, 2 minute games, quick, fast action. But this reminds me very much of the old Siege, if you guys remember. With the old Siege, I think it was about 4 minutes long. It was a big hit with all of the hardcore players, but with the casuals, who just didn't like it because it just took too long. So it's not going to be for everybody. So this should take around 5 minutes. You've also got to consider as well, you know, there's bigger bosses as well that spawn in the middle, like Kaju, which will give you a power up for you and your team. And then with the power-ups as well, I didn't even say this in the gameplay, you saw it with Kenji, he gets a crazy reload speed buff. I think he gets a movement speed buff, definitely a damage speed buff with the power-ups. So it's going to just get very chaotic towards the end. Again, from a competitive standpoint, I don't know where I stand with it. I think it's got potential, but after seeing the power buffs, I think it would just be like more of a fun game mode. Maybe it's just going to ease people into this MOBA, but people have been dreaming of Brawl Stars MOBA for a very long time. Yeah, I'm just scared of how quick that Kenji was reloading there. I think the interactions will be very, very unlike what we're used to, and it will just be a bunch of like button smashing as the game goes on. But I'm excited to try it out. I'm glad Brawl Stars are testing the water with these types of things. And yeah, definitely one thing that could be considered as an esport potential in the future, I think, once they probably remove the power, like the movement speed buffs or whatever. Anyways, there's a lot to go through with this Brawl Talk. I'm very happy with this one. I think it's what the game needs. I think it's still lacking something, but I think it's a good one. It's a good one. It should bring a lot of people back to the game. I'm just hoping future updates will have, you know, these big collabs, we'll have these big gameplay improvements, etc. So yeah, there's a lot of things. Of course, subscribe to the channel to take, well, I'll be going through all of the sneak peek stuff when I get the information. So tomorrow, the next day, etc. You know, breaking down the new brawlers. Subscribe so you don't miss out on any of that, guys. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.